I wanted to talk to you
Oh,
though about your big win over Yohan Lainesse at UFC Vegas 70.
yeah.
How's everything going with that? Because you
Yeah.
got a lot of hype around you with just two fights under your belt, just because you got two first round finishes coming off the Contender Series with another finish. So, how's everything been since the
Mm.
win?
Everything's been great, man. That's if I could write a fight perfectly, that's pretty well how it would go. I took one significant strike. I only absorbed one strike in the fight, and it was right before I took him down. You getting a getting a fist fight in a cage at any level, you're expecting to take a bunch of shots, but we're at the UFC level. These are some of the best guys in the world. Johan's one of the best guys in Canada. He belongs in the UFC. He's high level. He's had wars so far in the UFC. Like when he fought Gabe Green, who's a tough fighter, he was winning that fight until he got stopped. Gabe Green did a great job of battling through that and persevering, but Johan dropped him badly. I thought the fight was over. And then Johan beat Darian Weeks, who's another tough guy. Like I fought Ian Gary and Brian Barbariana. Neither of them were able to finish him. Johan wasn't able to finish him either, but it was a tough fight that he ended up winning. But Johan's a super tough guy. He hits like a truck. He's big for the weight class. He's strong. You're not going to get much bigger than that for the weight class. I trained with him a year ago in Niagara, and when he came to the gym, he was 215. I was like,
Damn.
"Holy shit, dude! What are you doing like that big?" I think probably the celebrations around Contender Series got away from
Yeah.
him a little bit, and then just naturally he's a big guy. But I was like, holy shit, man, you're gonna make welterweight in like 9 weeks. He was like 9 or 10 weeks out from the Gabe Green fight, and he was like 215. Holy shit, you're huge. So he's a big guy. He's strong. He's tough as hell. Nobody's submitted him before. I'm the first guy to submit him. I don't even think anyone's actually successfully taken him down in
Hmm.
MMA. Like I was really happy with my ability to get on top of him and keep him pinned because every time anyone's tried to take him down, he's fought so hard and he looks like his reactions aren't necessarily the most high level technical solutions, but he fights to the bitter end. He really does not accept bottom position, which is what, if nothing else, you want from a fighter. It's like, look, he might not have all the perfect answers, but man, he's gonna fucking fight hard and he's got the right attitude. He's not gonna stop on bottom. And being able to get on top of him a couple minutes into the first round and keep him down and get the finish down there, I was pretty happy
Yeah,
with.
and like I think you were even mentioning that you didn't really think it was gonna go that quick. Like you were expecting more of like I believe based off what you said in a press conference interview, like you were kind of expecting to wear him down first. Like you didn't think you would be able to get a finish in the first round. So what was like the game plan going into it? Because you're thinking he was like scrambling, gonna be like wiry on the ground, but he's also super strong on the feet, right? So, but that's also your specialty. So I guess what was the game plan going into it?
So I thought going into the fight I'd have the advantage everywhere. I thought the largest gap in our game and my largest advantage would be in the grappling exchanges, especially like jiu-jitsu style grappling. Next would be wrestling, and final advantage would be in the
Mm,
striking. All right, if we're going to break martial arts, MMA down into basically those three
yeah.
categories. Um, I thought he was most dangerous in the striking, which I still think is the case. He hits really hard and he's tough. He can take a big shot to the head and he can give a big shot to the head. He's also unpredictable. He's won fights with big flying knees. He's won fights with uppercuts. He's won fights with big left hooks. They're not the prettiest strikes of all time, but man, he really puts everything behind him, and there's a lot behind him when he
Yeah.
does that. So he needs to be respected in that way. He's definitely a power puncher, a little more of a bruiser style, but man, it's dangerous. I mean, he's 9-1 with how many stoppages for a reason,
Right.
right? Like he's a dangerous guy. Um, I thought the path of least resistance would be getting on top of him. I didn't want to rush it. Didn't want to run into big uppercut or big knee or walk into something right off the bat. I thought staying at range would be a safe
Hmm.
play. I know I have big knockout power as I showed in my last fight, and I've shown in dropping guys and knocking other guys out in fights. But I thought that was probably the most dangerous area for me, so I wanted to avoid that as much as possible with him. I thought a long kicking game on the outside would frustrate him and allow me to break him down, pick him apart, and disguise either takedowns or force him to really close the distance, which would either get me in on the legs or get me in on the clinch, which is exactly what happened. He rushed in and ripped that overhand left, kind of caught me on the side of the head. I was like, oh shit, that he had good power in it. I wasn't like worried about it, but I was like, oh fuck, this guy does hit really hard. And I got into the clinch almost exactly how I had planned on it. We'll get in strikes and he'll rush for it at some point, and I'll get in to the clinch. I hit that outside trip almost immediately. I was surprised kind of how much stronger I felt than him. I don't know if he was just relaxed and didn't realize the danger he was in, but I was able to get the takedown immediately. I know I'm a strong guy, but I really felt much stronger than him when we first tied up. So I was happy to get that takedown. I kind of just parachuted the legs on the way down, where it was nice based over the top. Wasn't worried about passing or anything too quickly. I'm like, let me solidify the takedown, take my time, really drive that shoulder pressure in on him. I went down and trained with the New Wave guys, John Danaher's team in Austin, Texas, a few months ago. And one thing I thought about while I was on top in the fight, and I've had amazing grappling coaches and training partners. Ouroboros Jiu-Jitsu in Hamilton, unbelievable training partners. Andre Graham was incredible. Team Alpha Male, Niagara Top Team, my coach Felipe Bragio in Hawaii and California. Amazing coaches. But one guy that shocked me in grappling, and this was only a few months ago, was Nicholas Meregali. His shoulder pressure on top was miserable. We were doing bad position rolls. So I think he started on my back, and I started trying to escape and trying to turn into kind of quarter guard, trying to recover half guard. And the shoulder pressure that man dropped on my chin and throat and neck, I was like, dude, if I don't move, I'm going to go out here, just from his shoulder pressure. It was insane. I've never felt shoulder pressure like that. So as soon as I got home from Austin, I'm like, well, I'm about to lose a lot of friends because I'm going to do this to everybody. So I've just been dropping heavy shoulder pressure on guys since then. And as soon as I got on top, I dropped shoulder pressure just the way I've been normally dropping it. And I heard him gurgling on bottom. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take my time. Every second I'm on top, I'm draining this guy with shoulder pressure. And then as soon as I got the head and arm locked up, I was originally looking to elbow him. We got to half guard. I pummeled back for an underhook, and I kind of reverse collar tie, framed against his face to start posturing up and dropping elbows. He recognized the danger and bridged hard to try and change the position, which gave me the head and arm lockup, just connected my hands. And I was like, all right, I'm going to drop an insane amount of shoulder pressure on this guy. I don't need to rush the choke, but I'm going to make him panic. And I'm going to make this even if I don't get the choke, I'm going to make it miserable. And if I don't get the choke, I'm going to get an advancement in position, which honestly, at the time when I first locked it up, that's what I thought I was going to get. I'm like, he's going to end up fighting this. It's not perfect yet, but he's going to probably end up fighting this with everything he's got, because that's his style. He really fights super hard to not let things happen. And I was like, I think I know which way he's going to bridge and which way he's going to fight. And it will likely give me an advancement in position. He went the wrong way. He went the other way, which just made the choke tighter. And so I switched to kind of a modified arm triangle. So he was kind of on his side, which if you do it traditionally, maybe the arm triangle is not as tight. Normally you have to step over to side control, or normally you see guys step off into side control to finish it. I kind of went to mount, 3/4 mount, intentionally, just because of how I had the choke locked up. And when he bridged in, he really tried to explode and then inhale, and the inhale was a very exaggerated I heard that gasp, that struggling gasp for air, and I was like, okay, this fight's over. I should have this. Take your time. Don't check out mentally. You still got to fight. Lock this up. I think we've got this fight. And as soon as I stepped over in a mount, I got the tap, and yeah, man, really excited.
Yeah, it was incredible finish, and it's almost like a freaking anaconda there, not the submission, but like a snake, how they choke their prey, they go tight, and then when they exhale or something and breathe in again, it's just you can't get that next breath. So it sounds like probably that strength from the squeeze. But what is the secret? What's Meregali's secret to having that super insane shoulder pressure? Is it just kind of holding it there, or is there an angle that he's going in at?
It's just it's just weight distribution and body
Okay.
positioning. So one other guy I've been working with, my jiu-jitsu coach Andre
Hmm.
Grambois, like year and a half ago, before I went on Contender Series, I had zero
Hmm.
mount game. My mount sucked. I was like, okay, I'm gonna let this guy move and I'm gonna take his back, which I have changed my game on top. If the guy wants to move, I have opportunistic submissions, like I've shown in my previous two submissions. So the guillotine on Contender Series and the rear naked choke in CFFC, right? I kind of just snatched on a mistake that
Yeah.
somebody made, which I still absolutely have that in my game. Of course, like that's not something I'm going to lose. That was a big part of my game for a long time, and it
Hmm.
still is. So if in scrambles anyone makes a mistake, I feel really confident latching onto something and getting the finish. Um, However, working with Andre and feeling his mount really made me see like the value of having a strong mount. I knew like obviously sitting on top of a guy and punching somebody and elbowing somebody's
Hmm.
great, but I just didn't feel comfortable and confident pinning someone from there because like in mount, especially if it's like a low mount, you're sitting on their hips. That's like the most explosive part of somebody's
Yeah.
body, right? So I just didn't feel. I was like, dude, I feel like okay, I have side control and that's great, and then I have the back and that's great. But if I go to mount, I feel like guys are like exploding and I'm not getting to a great position. I feel like that's been one of, if not the greatest improvement in my game since the Mickey Gall fight, not even since Contender. In the last year, less than a year, that's been the biggest improvement in my game. So I was really happy to get a submission from there. I know Andre Grambois was proud of that. Like that was largely his
Hmm.
influence. I don't know if I would have really embraced the mount in the top position the way that I have if not for him. He's taught me so much about just being heavy and strategic on top. I feel like when I'm on top like that, I'm resting. Like even the Wednesday, we're doing like our workout at the PI, and you're low on carbs, you're low on calories. We had really exploded the night before. I wanted Tuesday to be my last hard workout, so we were just kind of going through some stuff on Wednesday. But I was hitting mitts, and like my muscles didn't feel super
Yeah.
explosive. I'm just like, look, of course you feel like that. You're at a huge calorie and carb deficit. But as soon as we started wrestling and grappling, I felt like I could have done that all night. Like just the way I think my grappling's changed. I feel like I'm reserving energy when I'm on top. Like I don't feel like I'm expending an insane amount of energy or anything. Like even Danny Castillo is in my corner, who's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was an NAIA national runner-up in wrestling, like super high level wrestler, super high level grappler, super high level MMA
Yeah, he's a
fighter.
legend.
And we haven't like gotten a hold of.
Yeah.
No, he's a legend, man. We haven't gotten a hold of each other in a while though, because I didn't make it down to Alpha Male for this camp at all. So I hadn't seen him in like 8 months. And he came back. He's like, okay, yeah, let's go through some stuff. And we went over some drilling. And I was showing him some of the top stuff I've been working on. And then, he starts moving a little bit and I shut it down. And then he starts moving a little more and I shut it down. And then basically, like, we just ended up rolling for like, 5-10 minutes or whatever. And we just were kind of like
Yeah.
going at it. And it was like a little bit of like a healthy ego thing of like him being the big brother, me being the little brother, and just kind of battling each other. And it was so much fun. But I'm like, dude, I'm super calorie deprived. I haven't had any carbs really, and I felt like I could have rolled like that for an
Yeah.
hour. And it just gave me like even more confidence going into this fight. And as soon as I got on top in the fight, I'm like, oh man, I can hang out here the rest of the round, and I'm really not going to expend much energy. Not that I had expended a ton of energy throughout the fight. It was like a pretty low
Hmm.
output fight, but I just felt like I went in control. I felt like there was a lot of like invisible things that most people don't see in MMA or most people don't understand in combat that allowed the fight to be a little bit of like a slower
Hmm.
pace. Yohan only threw 4 strikes in the fight and landed one. And while I'm sure looking back, he would have wanted to throw more strikes and would be encouraged to throw more strikes. I think it was things that I was doing that was shutting down his offense.
And what was that?
Um, Both in so distance management, I think I kept the distance really well. I was firing attacks up the middle quite well, both through like side kicks, round kicks, stomping the knees, straight
Hmm.
punches. He tends to loop his shots a little bit more. He comes a little bit wider. So I was beating him to the punch quite
Gotcha.
literally. And I think that made him nervous coming forward. I also have a lot of
Hmm.
power, both in my kicks and my strike. Um, and I think probably some of it was, if I had to jump into his head for a second, I would say like they probably were most concerned about my ground game and
Yeah.
grappling. So not wanting to get taken down. So there's that in the back of
Kind
your
of slowed
head.
him down a little bit.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think the striking that I showed in this fight was very different from the striking that I showed in the Mickey Gall fight. In that, in the Mickey Gall fight, I boxed mostly. I threw like overhands and left hooks, like kind of loopy punches. Whereas in this fight, everything I threw was straight and was more kick heavy. And most of the Mickey Gall fight, I fought orthodox. Most of this fight, I fought southpaw. So I think there was probably like a lot of things they had planned for. Like, okay, Malott's going to rip overhands with you and hooks, which is what
Hmm.
he likes. So they're like, okay, when you get in the exchange, you should be comfortable. While I have power, Malott, well, but from his perspective, like, while Malott has power, um, he also has power. So it's a little bit more of an even exchange. I think that probably threw him off. That I came out with a different stance. I came out with different strikes. I came out with still having like a strong ground game, and I was not there
Hmm.
for him when he wanted to throw
That's
strikes.
so
I
tricky
think that
too.
probably threw him off.
So tricky.
Yeah. It's also, it's something I've had confidence in. Something I've drawn confidence from, excuse me, is knowing that I really haven't shown much of my
Hmm.
game yet. All my wins are pretty quick, and I think I've just done what's necessary. I haven't like gone out there and been like, I'm gonna show this, I'm gonna show that, I'm gonna do all these things. I'm like, okay, here's the problem in front of me. How do I solve that best? And pretty much every time I've been able to solve it
It
fairly
sounds like
quickly.
you're playing chess out there, to be honest. And then like almost in some other
Thanks, man.
cases, maybe they're playing checkers. So like when you come out, like basically thinking like two steps ahead, like he thinks based off your last fight, and then you're like, all right, so that's what he's thinking. So here's what I'm gonna go opposite of that even. So it's like way ahead. I think. Who taught you all that? Is
Yeah.
that just kind of your mindset, like when you're at home by yourself, game planning
I-
and stuff, or is that your
I've
coaches?
had I've had world class coaches. Can we pause for a quick second? I just
Oh
went to the
yeah,
bathroom because I didn't. I
go
really.
for it, bro.
I'll be right back. I'll give you better
Okay,
conversation in
go
a
for it. No
sec. Sorry,
worries.
buddy. But yes, you asked what you asked who taught me that kind of
Yeah, like
approach.
where did you get your like that chess mentality over like checkers? Because not every fighter does has like the chess mentality where kind of two steps ahead or really putting it in like these in-depth game plans and like phase one, phase two, phase three, like exactly how you're explaining earlier. So
Mm.
where'd you kind of get all that? Is that yourself or your coaches?
Um, I've been super blessed in most of my career to have world class coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Um, other than like the beginning, I didn't really have much coaching when I started. I had one really cool spot in town. It was like the only gym in town. It was like a karate taekwondo gym, and we did a little bit of kickboxing there, a little bit of MMA. And my coach had a BJ Penn textbook. I had an Eddie Bravo DVD and textbook, and we kind of just like watched those and drilled the moves that we had in there.
Mm,
So I think a lot of it just came from like curiosity. It was like I didn't have a ton of places to learn MMA. So I was just obsessed with like what can I learn? So a lot of it was just like watching fights, or YouTube wasn't really a thing at the time. So it was just like watching old DVDs and hitting replay and starting again and trying to find things out. So I think that made me like kind of curious and ask good questions. And then I've had really good coaches throughout my career also be good at asking questions and kind of teach me how to problem solve and break things down. Like,
mm,
one thing I truly appreciate about a good coach is asking them a question, then being like, "Oh, I'm not sure. Let's figure it out." Because there's nothing more
yeah,
frustrating than asking somebody a question or saying something like, "Oh, I know the answer to that," and then you see their answer. I'm like, "That's
100%.
an answer," or like, "That's like that was an answer, but that's kind of an outdated answer." And then being like, "No, man, it worked for me." It's like, yeah, it did. Just because something works or worked out doesn't mean it's the right call. A good example
Right.
is drinking and driving. Should you drink and drive? No. Just because you got drunk and drove home and nothing bad happened doesn't mean it's safe, right? It's like that's
Yeah.
not the answer. Don't fucking do that. But I think that of that, like MMA, it's like, well, it worked for me. It's like, just because it worked doesn't mean that's the call we should be making. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, I didn't get hurt. Like, okay, well, maybe there's a better answer than like, well, it didn't fucking kill me. So
Yeah.
I try my best to really look at MMA from multiple perspectives. I try to, play out positions and see like, well, what is the right answer here? I think jujitsu tends to lead the way
Mm-hmm.
um, in asking those questions, especially now that it's taken what I think is probably the best tool from wrestling, which is like situational sparring.
Oh
So
yeah.
for a long time, jiu-jitsu was just like, okay, show up, we're going to go over 3 or 4 moves, now slap hands with your partner and just roll. And so you
Yeah.
do like 4 moves and then you just roll, and you probably wouldn't be able to try those moves out. Wrestling, I feel like, has for a long time been ahead of the game in that they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to do live scrimmaging, but we're also going to do situations like get in front headlock and start from there, get in the single leg and start from there, get in ref's position and start from there, right? So they
100%.
did a good
Yeah.
job of breaking things down so that people can actually practice the things that they've been going over. I think once jujitsu started implementing that, which most places seem to be doing, I think the level of jujitsu really took off. I think people are asking better questions now and really like figuring out what tends to work universally. Like there's always going to be your own personal twist on things. Like if you're 6'5", your answer to your solution to a problem might be different than somebody who's 5'5", right? But
Yeah.
there are kind of like universal truths and concepts where it's like this does win. This is the
Mm-hmm.
call from um, something
It's almost better
simple
to
like
have those like basics, like that full on
100%.
basic understanding first, and then kind of evolve out of that.
100%, 100%. Um, I'm really blessed to have good coaches who ask those questions as well, who are open to new ideas. I don't like being around closed-minded people, and I think the people I'm around, and I've been around for a long time, and the people I keep around me are very open-minded and are willing to learn and willing to admit that, like, I actually don't know. Let me
Mm-hmm.
check it out. And one guy that first one that comes to mind is like the most recent time I've heard a coach say that was um, I brought Danny Castillo into my corner. Chris Prickett was also in my corner. So, they're both high level wrestlers and they're
Right.
both my coaches, right? Like Danny Castillo wrestling, but MMA kind of more so, he has a bunch of UFC fights. So he's kind of like my MMA coach as well as my wrestling coach. And then Prickett's like my main wrestling coach. So there could
Mm-hmm.
be egos there, right? It could be just a pissing contest of bringing 2 guys in and one being like, no, I know more about wrestling. And then the other guy back and forth and like, who's got, who's got a bigger ego. But like,
Which
I
probably
like that
happens all the time.
oh, dude, I've seen it. It's
Yeah.
embarrassing out of guys. Like I've cornered with people and seen the other 2 corners like just have a pissing contest. And I'm like, you realize we're not here for you guys, right? Like this isn't what
Yeah.
this is about. We're here for fighter over here. Like this is the guy we're here for. So put your fucking ego aside. Like I've been in the corner where I was a striking coach and then another striking coach was brought in and he wants to do things. And I'm like, okay, you guys have been working on that for 2 months. I'm not going to change it now. Why the fuck would I change it? We're about to go into a fight.
Yeah.
Isn't the way I'd suggest it, but I'm cornerman number 3, not cornerman number 1. So I'm going to hold the mitts and I'm going to shut the fuck up, So
Yeah.
like, we'll
Be a
talk
team
about it
player.
after. But what's that?
Be a team player, basically,
Exactly. Yeah,
instead
man.
of
It's
making it
not. It's
about
not
you. Yeah.
about me. Like it's not
Yeah.
about me. It doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. It's not like, oh, I've got to be right. I'm like, if it's truly something that I think is going to get us in trouble, I'll say something. But otherwise, I'm like, okay, man. Like, know your role and play your role. So anyway, long story here. I brought Castillo in. So a bunch of Niagara top team came down to watch the fights and experience fight week with us because I'm on Niagara top team and so is Jasmine Jasdavicius.
Right.
So we had 3 coaches from Niagara top team and we had 6 fighters, including Jazz and I. So 4 other fighters. So they kind of were having like evening MMA practices in the
Mm-hmm.
workout rooms. And Prickett, our wrestling coach and the head coach at Niagara Top Team, was running practice, and Danny Castillo jumped in to work with one of the guys. And I was like, dude, that's super sick that he's willing to work with my friends. Like, I appreciate that. He's wealth of knowledge. He's going to be able to help these guys. And then Prickett was like, can I get you to show some things from here? Like they were working a certain position. And Danny Castillo showed a few things, which was awesome. And then one of the guys asked a question. He's like, something about like head position. Where's your head position on this? And he's like, Danny's like, actually, I'm not sure. Let me feel it. Like just even the not having this like ego about yourself, like, well, I fought this many times in the UFC, so I have to show these guys I know everything. Just the willingness to be like, oh, actually, I don't know. Let me see. It's like, okay, I think I do this, and I think I do this
Hmm.
because of this, this, and this. I mean, and then after he was
Yeah, I
like,
love
yeah,
that
guys, I
quality
don't know
too,
everything,
honestly.
but I know, dude, it's the best quality because I feel like
Yeah.
insecure people and insecure coaches are like, no, I have to make these guys believe I know everything. It's like none of us do, man. We're all figuring this shit
And
out
you're gonna make
together,
us trust you
and
less by
you're
doing
gonna make
that.
us trust you less once we realize you're full of shit, and
Yeah.
you're gonna learn less by not admitting it because you're protecting this thing that doesn't exist, or like outdated outdated knowledge, or specific knowledge like that might not fit for everyone. It's like, dude, let's
Hmm.
ask questions. What are they like what do they do in science when you're trying to learn new things, when you're trying to discover new things? They ask questions, man. Humans naturally are
Yeah.
very inquisitive. Like we should be inquisitive. That's how we learn. It's not by just like sticking to outdated ideologies, like or philosophies. Like ask questions and figure it out. Like Danny now knows the position better than he did before he showed that. And it's because he was like,
Hmm.
actually, I'm not 100% sure, rather than just being like, oh, well, making something up on the spot or trying to deflect the question back to the guy, which you see from some
Yeah.
egotistical coaches. It's wild. But I've been really blessed to have the coaches around me really ask good questions and be eager to learn and eager to help guys around them and just like genuinely want to see the people around them better themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of shows in both teams, with Niagara and with Team Alpha Male, like both gyms, ton of success, and you see a lot of guys wanting to kind of come and train with you guys as well, and you guys are able to kind of move around and train with other people, which I think is pretty sick. So, I think
Yeah.
you guys have a good thing brewing. But one other thing I want to kind of like ask you about is like, so you are like just on a crazy streak. I mean, you only have one loss in your career. Other than that, they're like all freaking first round finishes. You got to have like the fight day dialed, it seems like. So I was kind of curious about like what your fight day looks like. Is it like, do you have a process where like it gets you ready to kind of get in the octagon and then you're firing? Because literally like you're not a slow starter at all. Like you get in there and it seems like you're firing, which is kind of probably not the same for a lot of fighters.
Yeah, some guys, take a little while to get going. Some guys are nervous. Some guys are scared to kind of break the ice a little bit. Um, Fight day, I try not to force anything fight day. Even something as simple as like eating, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not super hungry on fight day and I like to have a light stomach. I don't like being full. I don't know how guys are able to like eat a big ass burrito fight day and stuff. I like kind of keeping it light, smoothies, fruit, power bars, baby food, stuff like that. Just like something where it's going to be like quick sugar, quick carbs, get it in me, and my stomach will be empty when I get in there so I can just fire. Um,
Gotcha.
I have my mental coach, Danny Patterson. He's an amazing mental coach. He works with a ton of MMA fighters, UFC fighters, NHL players, CEOs, anyone performing at like a high level or high pressure. He's working with guys like that. So we go over the exercises that we've been developing the past 10 years together that I've been working, well, not that I've been developing with him, but like he gives to me and then I use. Um, we've been working together for 10 years, so we've got a lot that we've been working on. I go back to those exercises. We usually have a
Can you
chat.
give me like maybe one or two just to see what those exercises are like? Like, is it to calm the nerves of anxiety or build up confidence or what is it exactly?
There's a lot of energy on fight day, right? And you can label
Yeah.
it however you want, and you can let it go in whatever direction you want. You can call it nerves, you can call it anxiety. It's just really energy, right? And energy can be a very useful tool when honed and used in the right direction and way. When it's not used well, it's very dangerous. And you see people crumble because of it. You see people make bad decisions because of it. It's almost like if we're looking to turn it into a substance, energy, fight day energy is like fire. It's like, do you let that get out of control and burn your house down and hurt yourself? Or do you use that to heat your home? Do you use that to, light the way? Do you use that? Do you control it and you use it, or do you let it control you and hurt you? Um,
Hmm.
I think when you really hit the right mental tools, you use the right mental tools, you are confident in the process, you have faith in the process, you believe in yourself, and you recognize that these feelings are natural and they're going to be there regardless of, of almost anything you're going to be feeling that. I think it really rises you up to the next level when used properly, right? I think I am quite good at using that, right?
Yeah.
I think, I mean, 9 first round stoppages, I think speak for themselves. Nine, not
Right.
just 9 first round stoppages, but in 9 wins, right? Nine
Hmm.
for nine. I think I'm better on fight day than I am in the gym. I think I'm very good in the gym, but I really feel like I allow things to fall into place fight day. I don't force things. I think I've been getting better at entering that kind of flow state. I haven't quite broken through into a perfect flow state yet, but I'm really getting there and feeling a lot more
Yeah, it sounds like
comfortable.
you're on
Like,
your way.
yeah, the last few fights have been the most comfortable I've ever felt. In their last one specifically, I was very comfortable in that cage. I felt like I was in complete control of my body. Whereas like first few fights as a young man, you're like almost having an out of body experience, right? It's like
Hmm.
you can't. It's almost like you're watching yourself fight. Whereas I feel like I have two hands on the steering wheel in this last one. Yeah, fight day can be a mind fuck though, man, because you have like big ups and downs. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes you're
So do
like,
you like breathing exercises, or like with the ups and downs, how would you calm yourself down? Just like acceptance alone of like knowing like I'm just gonna be up and down all day, and like not really like go too much with either thought. Like if you're feeling confident, don't feel like you're bulletproof. But if maybe you're feeling weak, don't think like you're just like the weakest guy in the world. Kind of like be okay with the thoughts, or like what is it?
a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that gives me the most confidence and reassures me the most is like you felt this every time and it's almost always worked
Mm.
out. You know, nine wins, 9 first round stoppages. Like you felt this last time and you got a first round stoppage. You felt that the 2 times before that and got a first round stoppage. So recognizing that like it doesn't it doesn't need to be perfect. You're gonna feel nervous and it's gonna happen either way. Like if you're scared, if you're nervous, if you're like shit, you have self-doubt for a second. Whenever it's self-doubt, I really go through my mental exercises, but when it's just nerves and just excitement, I'm like, okay, this is part of the process. This is what you need. You need this. It would be weird if you were just indifferent.
Hmm.
It wouldn't be right. That'd almost be more concerning if I just didn't give a shit. If I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
cool, what am I gonna have for dinner after the fight? Like, I'm not thinking about that at all, right?
Hmm.
That's a good thing. And the other part of it is like, I'm gonna miss that feeling someday because there's nothing in the world that makes you feel like that. I haven't found anything else. I've been skydiving and it was at a Wounded Warriors Ranger Road event in California, and it was run by a friend of mine who's a ranger. Um, and he was an MMA fighter as well. So a lot of the guys were Team Alpha Male guys. So the I went and signed up and did a skydiving thing, did a jump, and the guy who was jumping knew we were all MMA fighters. He's like, dude, so talking about how we're adrenaline junkies, this and that, and then we do the jump, we land, and he's like, so how does that compare to MMA? Like in his head, he's like, bro, you thought MMA was cool, like how much of a rush is this, huh? Like this is
Yeah.
even more, I bet. And I was like, oh yeah, man, that was fun.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, tell me. Like he persisted. He's like, I want to know, like, is that more or less than MMA? I'm like, not that I've done these drugs, but if I were to compare the rush of a jump to like the strength of a drug, what we just did jumping was like a shot of whiskey, and MMA is heroin. He's like, what? I'm
Yeah.
like, jumping out of the plane it didn't even scratch the itch of MMA. He's like, you serious? I'm like, dude, it wasn't like, not to put down what you do because that was super fun and I loved it and I would love to do it again. but not even close to close. There's like they're not even the same. It's more like a cigarette versus heroin. You know, it's like the one
Yeah.
is MMA is there's nothing that compares to it that I've found in my life. Um, and I probably never will, as far as like something that gives you that much of like a rush before the nerves before, and then the high afterwards of like, oh my God, I fucking did that. Like the first deep exhale I've had in 3 months, you know, like it's just
Mm-hmm.
such a cool feeling. Um, yeah, man, I don't remember how this question started or how I started talking about it, but yeah, it's a hell of a feeling.
No, it was about like just basically dealing with those fight day nerves, and kind of like honing yourself in to be this basically like guy who just shows up and is ready to kind of like start firing on all cylinders. Like, that was basically
Right.
what it is.
Right. So what I was going to say is like, as much as there's that potentially nervous energy or excited energy, and that energy's there, I try my best to appreciate and be grateful for that energy, even though it seems potentially overwhelming at times. I try my best to feel grateful for it and appreciate it and live in the moment, because once I'm done fighting, once, however long it is, 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever it is, I probably will never feel that feeling again. I'll probably
Hmm.
never get after
So some of
whatever
it's
the
just like
age.
appreciation.
Yeah. Gratitude's
Hmm.
huge for me, man. It's like super corny, and just like practicing gratitude is an important part of life. But ever since I've made it like really practice gratitude every day, and like try to really check negative thoughts, and like start off every morning labeling a few things I'm really grateful for, doing that
Right.
before
I'm trying to
bed.
do that myself actually. So
Dude, it makes life so much better. Just like it's a little shift. It's like working out. Like people are like, oh, well, how can I be happier? It's like, oh, well, be grateful for things. Like, well, I was grateful and I'm not happy. It's like, okay, well, just because you did bicep curls one time doesn't mean you're going to be jacked. Like, go to the gym. Go to the gym
yeah.
every day. It's like practice gratitude every day. If every single day you're grateful for the things that you have, it's like you're going to wind up being happier. And I feel like in the last, maybe, I mean, I practiced it a bit, but not as much as I do now. Maybe the last year and a half. It's just been
Hmm.
like my life's gotten so much better. Obviously, there have been other changes to my life that I'm happy about. Was super grateful for my time in California, but I was homesick the whole time I lived there. I love my team. I love Team Alpha Male. I love those guys. Those are my boys. But if I could pick that whole team up and bring everybody to Southern Ontario in a second, I would.
Yeah.
I like California, and there were really cool things about it, but Southern Ontario's home for me, man. There's nothing like, I'm up in Muskoka right now, which is like cottage country in Canada. We're up on lake. I'm watching, snowmobilers ride on the lake right now. And it's just like a beautiful sight. And it makes me so happy to be here. And I get to wake up at my parents' house and see my family every day, which was like for years. I moved out when I was 17. I went out to college when I was 17. So like waking up and seeing my parents and my little sisters is like a luxury now, not something like I was used to. And to just be able to see them and hang out with them, and like just have dinner, and like not even do anything together, but just like see them come in the house. And it's I'm really grateful for that. It's made my life a lot better.
Yeah, and I feel like another thing to it is like because for example, right, in fighting sense, it's almost like you could focus on those situations where it's like, oh, my life might suck, like I got to go fight this guy who's trying to take my head off. But then if you look at it on the other side where it's like, oh, I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to like maybe gain a lot of fans per se, and like through this experience of going and fighting someone, then it makes it less about like, oh, like I gotta go fight a scary guy, and like you have gratitude for like a bigger picture almost. But like you can almost apply that to anything, it seems like.
Well, let's set one thing straight. I don't have to do anything. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate being told what to do, buddy. I don't like that. I like doing whatever I want, man, and I can do whatever I
Right.
want. I could never fight again if I really didn't want to, and I did for a little while. There was 3 years where I didn't think I was going to fight again, and I planned on not fighting again. I don't have to do anything. I get to. I do this because I want to. If I wanted to go get a
Exactly.
job,
That's
I could
kind of
go
what
get
I'm
a
saying
job.
too.
Yeah, that's what, and
Yeah.
but that's a perspective that people like kind of forget
Exactly.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
dude. Like, what's cooler than waking up every morning, going and hanging out with my best friends, doing my favorite thing, training martial arts, and then coming home and hanging out with my family and my girlfriend and my dog? Like,
Yeah.
what the? I genuinely, I'm like, okay, obviously, I'd like to have my own place. I live with my parents right now. I'd love to have my own house. And that's the thing that will change once hopefully the market dips down a little bit more and we find a great spot for not my girlfriend, my fiance now. We
Congratulations, by the
find.
way.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, last night,
Yeah.
man. Pop question.
Awesome,
So
man.
yeah, man. But obviously that will change eventually. We'll have our own place, but nothing's changed in my life other than just like
Yeah.
that little high that you get from winning a fight and achieving a goal. But nothing's changed in my life, and I don't want anything really to change in my life. Like, it's not like, okay, I won this fight and now things are gonna get good. I'm like, dude, I if anything, I just get to keep living the life that I've been living, and that's what's
Like
like
you're already
sick. Is like,
happy, like internally.
dude, if I had $10 million, my life would change almost not at all. The only thing that would change is
Hmm.
I'd have my own place right now. Like, and I'd still probably stay at my parents' house once or twice a week, just to like, depending on where the house is, like they're by my gyms, so by one of my gyms. So I'd probably go stay there and hang out with the dog and see my siblings and my mom and dad. That's it. I still like every once in a while travel to train and have little vacations where I go and train and travel. I'd be training with the same people I train with now. I'd still take traveling trips to go to California or see Alpha Male and CSA, or Austin, Texas to go train at New Wave. Like, I'm gonna do that anyway. Um,
Hmm.
nothing in my life would change. Like, I'm not a guy who needs a fancy car. I drive uh, a Toyota RAV4, and I fucking love it. It's a beautiful car. It blows my mind that people are like, oh, I got to spend $200,000 on a car. Like, my car stays within lanes on its own. Like, what more do you need, dude? Like, it's
Yeah.
like, how luxurious do you need a car to be? It's a fucking car.
Yeah.
Um, I
Or
don't
like,
know,
how
man.
much you got to boost your ego. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like,
I don't know
dude,
what
if
it
you
is.
if you took a 2023 Ford Focus back to 2002, people would be like, "What is this machine? This thing is incredible." And you're like, "Nah,
Yeah.
man, fuck that. I don't want." It's like, dude, we're all driving luxury cars now. Let's be honest. Every single, like, you have seat warmers in cars now, dude. Your
The
cheeks are
cameras in the
warm the
back, like you got
second
it
you sit
all.
down.
Yeah.
Bro, what more do you need? So, like, I don't know. I fucking love my life. Like, I get to do my favorite thing with my favorite people, my favorite things with my favorite people every day. So my life's not going to change that much with a win. It's not going to change that much with a loss. I'm still going to do what I love regardless. So I feel like that allows me to go out there and be creative and flow and be happy and lay it all on the line and be accepting of whatever happens, but not stop fighting to the bitter end, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah. And I think honestly, this is like a nice lesson for a lot of people, because I think the main thing we hit on there was like, just you don't have to do anything, right? Like you get to do these things. And that's kind of a nice way to look at it all. And that way,
Mm,
with wins and losses, a lot of things come secondary, because there's things that you
mm,
kind of get to do and that you're grateful for overall, rather than like maybe on like one specific little experience. You're grateful for like
mm.
a bigger picture of things. But moving on, because I want to talk about like something that's important to you, which is the UFC coming to Canada. Have you heard
Yes.
any words about that yet, or anything after you talked about it after the win? Hush,
No, I
hush. Oh,
haven't.
you haven't. Kind of like you have,
No,
but you haven't.
no,
Yeah,
no, I haven't anything yet.
yeah. Well, I'm hoping that they come there soon. Maybe like
I,
towards the end of the year, or something. Fourth quarter, third
I'm,
quarter of the year.
I'm hoping they come soon. I'm hoping they come soon. I want to fight this summer. Hopefully, we can make that happen.
Yeah. And then you and Jasmine's got to be on there. I won't push the envelope too much, but I'm hoping we can get at least you and Jasmine on the same card.
Yeah,
Maybe
man.
even bring out a couple of the guys from Niagara Top team that haven't really made it to the UFC yet. I don't know.
Dude, there's a handful of guys that deserve it, man. If I had to pick 3 or 4 guys that are ready, I mean, Urgus Segeta is a fucking beast at welterweight. Um, Anthony Romero is an absolute beast at lightweight. So we've got Urgus is 5 or 6-0. Anthony Romero, I think, is 12-1. Um, it's a little early for Vinny Diaz. I think he's 3 or 4-0, but he'll be
Hmm.
there. And
I actually interviewed him about
uh,
a year ago too. Vinny.
oh, dude, he's a fucking beast. I like that
Yeah, he
kid a
seems like a
lot, man.
smart guy
I met him when he
too.
was like
Yeah.
16, like a skinny little 16-year-old curly headed kid, looked like fucking Corey from Boy Meets World. And he's just like a scrawny little kid that was
Yeah.
excited about jiu-jitsu. And even like when we rolled then, I was a lot bigger than him, but we do kind of like chest move type stuff. And I was like, oh shit, that's what I would have done from there. Hell yeah, kid. Like we roll. I'm like, dude, this
Hmm.
kid's really good. And he's just got like a great attitude. He's a super hard worker. He pushes himself like crazy. And in fights, he like fights like a dog for the takedown. It's not like, oh well, I'm gonna look for the takedown, but I'll like we'll kickbox for 3 minutes and then I'll look for a takedown. He's like, hey, guess what? I'm made of Velcro and we're going to the ground. Like he's gonna
Yeah.
get a hold of you, not getting away, and he's gonna get your back and sub you. He's really high level. Urgus is like that too, but at light heavyweight, he or light heavyweight. Fuck, I mean, he could be if he wanted to be, but I was gonna say at lightweight, but at welterweight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Urgus a beast. Anthony Romero's sick everywhere. Sick striking, sick grappling, sick wrestling, high level MMA IQ, strong as hell, athletic. And then Ciryl is an absolute beast too. He's 7-1. He's got a fight coming up, so he'll be 8-1 soon. So like records wise, we've got I think probably records wise, like Anthony Romero and Ciryl are like the ones knocking on the door
Okay.
most
So hopefully
heavily
get
right now.
those guys in there too.
There are a ton of other
Here,
guys that are
one
ready
sec.
too, but
I'm back. One sec. There you go.
yeah, for sure.
Go
There are
ahead.
a ton of other guys too that are coming up. We've got a great area coming up. Bobby Poultier is a sick fighter. He's coming up. We got a bunch of guys that are all coming up, and then like vets like Scott Hudson and Adam Asenza and Shane Campbell, guys who've already been like at the top of Canadian MMA for a long time. Shane Campbell, a UFC vet, but like for the young prospects coming up, I think they'll probably be a little more. The UFC will probably be leaning toward those guys a little bit more.
Hmm.
But yeah, we've got like a good crop of guys, and I really, really believe in our area. I think Southern Ontario, especially in the next 5 years, is going to produce a lot of high level fighters. Like we've only had teams really working together for the past couple of years. Before it was very divided. It was like everyone had their own gyms and it was
Yeah.
weird training or it's like guys were kind of trained together, but not really. And everybody had their own gym, everybody had their own coaches and stuff. And now like guys are really starting to work together. Niagara Top Team is kind of that like home base for MMA for all the guys, whether be Crellin's House of Champions guys or Aegis guys or Burlington Training Center, whatever. Those guys are all kind of
Hmm.
coming to Niagara Top Team to all wrestle against each other, to all spar against each other, and then kind of going off with their coaches and working on their crafts on their own, and then coming in together and kind of testing everything out together and helping each other. So it's like it's a really conducive atmosphere to growth, and so I think we're really going to take off in the next couple of
Yeah, I
years.
think you guys are like probably that next gym. Like, you know how it was like I think Connor's gym for a while was like that where they're kind of bringing out people whereas like
Yep.
rather unheard of before. Then you have like Izzy's gym, which is kind of doing that. I think you guys are probably that
Yep.
next one with a lot of young talent like cooking up in there. So it'll be a lot of like
Mhm.
prospects hitting the scene soon, I would imagine.
I agree. Yeah, might
Yeah,
I think Jazz and I are kind of leading that charge, and then you've got Aaron Jeffrey and Bellator kind of leading that charge as well, right? It's kind of
right.
us through right now in the major promotions. Somebody called us Jazz and I the Patty and Molly of Canada, and I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm seeing it
but
too. You guys like gave so much good energy after the fight and everything. Jasmine was like just going off about Canada and all that, and I loved it. That was a great little promo she did there as well. So you guys definitely got that good energy for
yeah,
sure. Are you looking to fight together more, or like how do you
I'd
like?
love to, man. It was
Yeah,
fight week energy was great, man. We're both positive people. We've I've seen her whole career because I was already a professional when she started training, which is wild because she beat me to the UFC by a few weeks.
yeah.
But like I met her when she I think it was like their second date with her second date with Prickett, our wrestling coach. She was like, "Oh, MMA, you fight MMA? Oh man, that seems kind of cool. Like that'd be a cool thing to try out." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, sure,
Mm-hmm.
sure." And then this girl beats me to the UFC. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Like I've watched her whole career, man. She's an awesome person and super hard worker. And clearly, obviously, big things are happening for her.
Yeah, and that was an amazing win. I think people might have been counting her out because she was the underdog going into that one, but like she just
Yeah.
definitely showed her wrestling was top notch, number one, and her composure was just she was like there the whole time. Like she got hit
Mhm.
with like a couple like good shots in the beginning, but like they didn't face her whatsoever, and she got that takedown, and then it was like over from there. I loved
Yeah,
watching that. That was amazing, honestly.
dominant fight from her. She looked amazing in that fight.
It looked like she had a lot of growth there too. Like she's been great all along, but it just seemed like she was dialed in and like just following a specific game plan. It was great. I'm actually going to talk to her tomorrow, so I can talk to her more
Yeah,
about her performance as well.
yeah, she fought
I
really
wanted to ask you
disciplined.
one other thing though.
Sure.
Um, who are you looking to fight? Are you looking to fight anyone, or are you just kind of going to let the UFC give you your next opponent?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's whatever the UFC wants, but there are a bunch of guys I'd like to fight. I think a vet would be kind of cool because I had the Mickey Gall who had like a ton of hype around him. He was kind of a vet, but also like a young up and comer at the same time. Then we had another
Yeah.
contender series guy. One guy I've got my eyes on right now would be like Nicholas Dalby. I think that'd be a sweet fight.
Ooh.
He's sick out of he's from Denmark, I believe,
Yeah, I think
right?
Denmark, Norway,
He's
some.
Danish. He's Danish,
Yeah.
right? I believe so. But yeah, he's tough. He's got a big name in Europe. He's got a bunch of fights in the UFC. You know, no one's put him away yet, and that's kind of my thing. So I like being the first. So last few fights we look at contender series. The guy I fought in contender series, Shimon Smotritsky. I was the first guy to beat him, finish him, and submit him. He was undefeated, and I finished him in the first round. Right. Look at the Mickey
Hmm.
Gall fight. I was the first guy to knock Mickey Gall out. Right. He had been stopped in a fight before, but it was like there was some health issues associated with that fight for the Diego Sanchez fight. There were no health issues in that one. I knocked him out clean, and then
Yeah.
this one, I was the first guy to submit. I think I was the first guy to take down Yohan Lainesse, but I was the first guy to submit Yohan Lainesse. So I've got first win or first guy to beat a guy, stop a guy, and submit a guy. First guy to knock a guy out, and first guy to submit a guy. It's like we've got three firsts. We've got Nicholas Dalby, super tough. He's got a big record. He's well known in Europe. He's a big star over there. I think like having like country versus country like is pretty cool. Like get Canada versus again. I believe he's Norwegian or Danish. I don't mean to be disrespectful in that way, like, but
Hmm.
get country on this one. I think that'd be a pretty cool one, and no one's finished him yet, and I think I can.
Yeah, and I just want to put this out there because I don't know what fans are thinking, but Yohan was an extremely tough opponent, and like you
Mhm.
did make it look easy. No disrespect to Yohan at all, but just for the record, like that was not just like some gimme opponent. Like he's an
Yeah,
extremely tough opponent for the record. Like just want people to know that.
yeah.
And then the fact that you're calling out another opponent who's freaking hard to finish in Nicholas Dalby, much respect on that one. So
Thanks, bro.
I'd like to see
Yeah,
that fight. Hopefully, the UFC. Maybe we'll see our post and make it happen. Who knows?
yeah. Let's get that one UFC. Let's get that one in Canada, please. Let's go. Like I
Hell
said,
yeah.
man, you pick an arena, I'll sell it out.
Let's do it. Let's do it. You and Jasmine on the card, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to talk about though, UFC 285. Your thoughts on John Jones versus Gane? I think that's a more interesting matchup than people are saying. Like,
Mhm.
people are giving it to Jones, but what do you think? I think it's freaking a tough matchup. It could go either way.
I think it could go either way. I think it's a great matchup, but I am leaning heavily toward John Jones in that one. Like, I don't think it'll be a complete blowout, but I think you'll
Mm-hmm.
see two different levels of martial arts. And I think John Jones, especially as the fight goes on, will probably negate a lot of Ciryl Gane's offense and shut him down and force him into poor body position, um, force him into poor positions, both on the feet and on the ground. I just think there's like a difference between their martial arts skills. I think one of the best attributes that Ciryl Gane brings to the cage is his speed and explosiveness and athleticism. Not explosiveness and power in the exact same ways like a Francis Ngannou who has like clearly more power. Ciryl Gane still hits like a truck and can knock anyone out, but I think it's more
Mm-hmm.
like his quickness and agility. Um, his ability to stay light on his feet, and he has good distance awareness. I think as the fight goes longer, John Jones breaks that down, and I think a good case study for that one is looking at the Dominic Reyes fight. Everyone talks about, a lot of people talk about how Dominic Reyes got cheated in the Jones fight. I disagree. I thought Jones won that fight. I had it 3 rounds to 2. I had rounds 3, 4, and 5 to Jones, and I liked the way he really took over the fight.
Mm-hmm.
While Dominic Reyes was landing some shots early on and kind of like flustering, throwing enough volume to kind of land on Jones. And then there were a couple combos where Jones just seemed like checked out and almost like he treated it like sparring, where a guy gets ahead of you and you kind of like jog away back to the center of the mats and then reset.
Yeah.
He kind of had a couple times, and Reyes is like, we're fist fighting in a cage for the world title. I'm not stopping until I have to. And so he'd
Yeah.
let off like, 15 strike combo or whatever. So barring those, especially the one in the third, because that, Reyes started the round with that. I thought in the third, after that combo, Jones did a really good job of forcing Reyes into bad positions on the feet, exploiting some of the holes in Reyes's striking defense and predicting where Reyes is offensive. So he's catching his rhythm very well and forcing him onto heels, forcing him to stand tall, forcing him to cross his feet, forcing him when loading his shots, because Reyes loads his shots in only a few main ways. Kind of Jones
Mm-hmm.
did a good job of disrupting those strikes, those kind of like building momentum before striking. Jones did a good
Yeah.
job of kind of shutting that down as the fight went on, and it forced Reyes into worse and worse positions. And that's when Jones really started like picking him apart and landing big shots. And I thought the the momentum and tide of the fight really changed. Like in my opinion, it was like, okay, Jones is clearly the more comfortable person in there. If I had to pick who I'd rather be in that fight, which is, I think, when in doubt, the best way to decide who won the fight, I would have rather been John Jones than Dominic Reyes.
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of, you're thinking it'll go like that Dominic Reyes fight a little bit, where like Ciryl will
Yeah.
show some pretty impressive striking along the lines, but John Jones will have that grit and kind of like use his IQ to overmatch that almost. I think what he'll do is kind of get him up along the fence, and that's where it's just basically over with, for Jones for
I
there.
think
Like
so.
as long as he pushes Gane against the fence, it's easy night, I think.
I think so too. I think Reyes has cleaner boxing than Gane. So I think
Yeah.
Reyes would be more willing to engage in the pocket than Gane is. I think when Gane and Jones get into the pocket, like a boxing range, Jones will force a clinch. And I think the clinch is going to heavily favor John Jones, both in takedowns and in striking. I think Jones is excellent at striking from the clinch. I think he's excellent at taking guys down from the clinch. And I don't know how effective Gane's takedown defense is or how effective his wrestling is. Not because I don't think he's good. He's just still fairly new to MMA. I think he's only been training like 5 years, which is insane.
Yeah.
Um, and not to discredit Gane at all. He's fucking amazing and could absolutely win this fight, especially at heavyweight. You never know what's going to happen. But
Hmm.
I think Jones picks him apart. I think those lead leg attacks, knee stomps, and calf kicks, and mostly the oblique kicks and knee stomps will change how Gane moves. He'll either make him move more, like a lot more lateral movement, so his knee isn't as much of a stationary target, which is exhausting. He isn't prepared to move at that same volume throughout the fight, right? So that'll add up, or it will force Gane to face his knee forward, so not in such a bladed stance, which I think is one of the ways he's able to move in and out and laterally so well. Um,
Mm.
if you force him to change his kind of foot positioning and knee positioning to face forward to make the knee stomp less effective,
And he
I
can't
think
like
that
hop around as much.
right. And just like having to consciously change your stance, like the thing you should be thinking about least when you're in there can fuck with your head. And then the last thing is if those aren't working, he'll have to then like sit down on his knee to put weight on the legs and bend the knee so that when the stomp comes, there's like strength in the legs. Um,
Hmm.
which Gane doesn't want to sit flat footed. If he sits flat footed in front of Jones, he's going to lose this fight. John Jones doesn't use a ton of angles. He's not offline a ton. He moves for the most part straight forward, straight backward. but he also has an 84.5 inch reach. So there, you can kind of get away with that when you're all arms and legs and you're 6'4" or whatever he is. He's long as hell. So he kind of gets away with that. He hides behind like a long shell guard. Um, I think if Gane presses past that guard, that's where Jones will tie up and start clinching,
Mm,
starting lands knees and elbows. I think a lot of lead leg stomps will make Gane uncomfortable. It might make Gane dive in and out even more in the first couple rounds to try and capitalize on Jones's stomps and try to get Jones to stop stomping on the knee. But I don't see, unless Jones gets hurt multiple times doing that, I don't see him stopping the stomps and side kicks. And I think those add up and change the way that Gane moves throughout the fight. I think
mm-hmm.
that allows Jones to land hard stabs to the body well. I think it allows him to get into the clinch and land knees and elbows. I think it allows him to get takedowns in the open or on the fence uh, from the clinch. And once he's on top, I think Jones is considerably better on the
Yeah.
ground, gone, especially once he's on top.
Yeah. And then just the last thing on that is like, do you think that Gane's team is probably like thinking, hey, you should go in there and like take out the legs? Because maybe from like, from Gane's side, if you're looking for a weakness on John, it's the legs, right? So do you think that might play an X factor in it? Or do you think John's IQ with like those oblique kicks and the front kicks and all that is going to kind of keep him safe as well from like eating a lot of calf kicks and shit like that?
I think that'll probably save him from eating a lot of calf kicks, having those stomps. I see Gane going back to that toe stab that he used a lot against Tai Tuivasa. I see him
Mm,
trying to use that a lot, especially where John Jones has like the long guard. His body's a little more exposed to those shots as he's exiting. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see like hand fight, bounce, 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 hand fight, toe stab from Gane. I think especially early in the fight, that will pay dividends. I think mixing that in with like a blitz left or like a big lead right hook from Gane or a lead right uppercut, I think will score especially early. The toe stab I think will be effective. He may lead leg stomp, like right side leg stomp to Jones. Um, this is all assuming he's fighting more southpaw, which he switches. He tends to be, I think, more southpaw, but he switches. Um, I think that rear leg, so Gane's left toe stab will be most effective when Jones is orthodox. Um, I think he'll blitz in and dive with his head offline and straight left a lot. But I do see a lot more single shots. So unless they hurt Jones, I think Jones's forward pressure, especially as the rounds start going on, will really wear
mm,
on Gane. First and second round might be close and Jones might drop the first two rounds. But I think once we start hitting the third, fourth, and fifth, Jones will kind of get ahead, especially if it's on the feet or sorry, on the feet in the later rounds. If he takes them down early, we may see an earlier pull ahead for Jones.
I see. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. I'm super excited for this fight. This is what we all want to see, like John versus a freaking heavyweight. So I'm super excited. Are you going to be watching it later?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, just to wrap up this interview, Mike Malott wants to go ahead and fight Nicholas Dalby at UFC Canada later this year. Mike's not saying that. I'm saying that, but he definitely wants to fight Nicholas Dalby, whether it's Norway or the Netherlands or something like that versus Canada. So let's go ahead and get that one in. And it was nice talking to you, Mike.
Thanks, bro.